All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our final pregame Facebook Live. I am Olivia Reiner, Pete Doughtery. Hopefully you've been with us throughout the season. Hopefully this isn't your first time joining us, but if it is, we're glad you finally found us. But it's about to end. Last Packers game of the season against the Detroit Lions. We just got the list of inactives, so we're going to read them off for you guys pretty shortly once we see some more of you joining us in. Please leave us some comments, some questions. We love reading them. We love hearing where you guys are from, and we're happy to answer anything within reason.
Yes, we'll answer almost anything.
Almost anything. Keep it classy, keep it fun, keep it kind. We're happy to be here. It's a little chilly out today. It's deceptively cold.
Yeah, you know, the temperature says 21, and it's not like it's real windy, but it feels like it felt to me like walking the dogs this morning, like it was 10 degrees.
It's cold. Yeah. It's cold out there. I was outside for a little bit. I met one of our viewers, one of you guys, at the tailgate, and says he watches us.
Did they offer you any food or hot chocolate?
I get offered a lot of food, and every time I want to accept, and I never do because I'm like, you know what, I'm working. I can't be enjoying myself.
No, you can't mix the two.
Exactly.
For sure.
So
we already have Davante Adams questions.
Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Give it to him. Yeah.
Keep those questions coming. So we'll start off with the Packers inactives. Tim Boyle out. Davante Adams, Equinemius St. Brown, Jair Alexander, Nico Siragusa, Jason Spriggs, and Kendall Donnerson. So of course, big name there. Davante Adams. This game could have been his opportunity to break two team records. He was 2 receptions away from breaking Sterling Sharp's team record of 112 receptions which was set in 1993. He was also 133 yards away from breaking Jordy Nelson's record of 1,519 receiving yards from 2014. So, unfortunately for him, next season might be his shot at trying to crack those records.
Yeah, this big stuff, and I'm sure he would have loved to be in the record books. I think it's kind of a big deal. Win or lose doesn't matter today. But St. Brown and Alexander not playing, especially St. Brown. One of the values of having Rodgers playing these games is to get him reps with St. Brown. And a rookie like that. So I think that does. That hurts the Packers a little bit. I think they could have used that little extra work.
Mm-hmm. Just saw a question. Let me see what your name was down there. Robert wants to know.
Who's the green one?
Oh, that's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Oh, we met Mom last weekend, as a matter of fact, in New Jersey. Yes.
My mother met everyone on the Packers news team, minus our editor Stu. So. She enjoyed meeting you guys. So, hello, Mother. But Robert has a good question with Jason Spriggs out. Who will go down, or who will go in if Brian Bulaga goes down? Bulaga was out with a knee injury.
So, Light is active, so I guess it could be him. Otherwise, trying to think who would be next. McRae is probably the next guy who's played the most tackle out of everybody else. So, I would think one of those two.
Good questions. Jake Kumaro is active. Tyler wants to know. Expect to see a lot of him, especially with St. Brown and Davante Adams out.
I would think he'll be starting, right? Who else would start? So I wouldn't be surprised if they have 65 offensive snaps if he gets, 55 or more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Aaron Jones. We seem to get an Aaron Jones question quite a bit. He's on IR,
yes.
So we're not going to see Aaron Jones. You will be seeing a lot of Jamal Williams. However, we saw a lot of him last week, especially over the past couple weeks.
I would think he'll get a lot of carries. I had a question there about Randall Cobb. If the Packers cut him, his contract actually runs out, so he isn't under contract for next year, and it's a big question of whether he'll be back or not next season. My guess is, this is just a guess, no inside information, that they'll let him walk, but maybe there won't be much of a market for him, and maybe he comes back at a much cheaper price than what they paid him this year in the last 4 years.
Jimmy Graham has also been questioned quite a bit whether or not he will return next season. A lot of fans, we've got a lot of comments that haven't been so positive about Jimmy Graham. I think we've all been underwhelmed with his performance. He's been underwhelmed with his performance this season. On paper, though, he's been doing okay.
The numbers are okay, but they signed him to be an impact guy. They signed him basically to be Jordy Nelson, but a little better because he's a bigger guy and just as athletic. and he just didn't. There was no big playmaking, no difference making. I thought going into the season he'd be a 10 to 12 touchdown guy. What does he have, 2 or 3? So that there's just not the impact they're looking for. I'll be surprised if he's back next year. There's no way they're bringing him back at 8 or 10 million, whatever they're supposed to pay him next year. Maybe he takes a pay cut and comes back. My guess is that they just move on and start over at tight end with everybody's favorite Robert Tonyan and then 2 or 3 other new guys.
Yeah, Omar says it's Tonyan time. It very well might be Tonyan time. We thought so last week. It really wasn't Tonyan time last week.
What do you have, 15 snaps?
It was lower than we all expected.
Yeah, I was thinking, twice that maybe. So, yeah, who knows? He's having trouble getting on the field. Tom Silverstein did a good column on him this week. Did he talk to him? And, it does sound like he's having some trouble. There's a lot that receivers and tight ends have to know at the line of scrimmage with all the audibles and all that. Those are hard positions for young guys to play, and it sounds like he's been making his share of mistakes and practice on those things. And that's the reason he's not getting on the field. That was the impression, at least.
For those of you just joining us, Davante Adams is out today against the Detroit Lions. It's a big blow to the Packers. It's a disappointment for him, knowing that he won't be able to break those 2 franchise records.
I would think this will knock him out of the Pro Bowl, too, I would guess. Not that players actually want to play in the game.
Yes. And I saw a guy had asked a question whether or not Jamon Moore would be seeing more offensive snaps today as a result of Davante Adams and Equinemius St. Brown being inactive.
So I would, if they go 4 wides, they'd have to put him out there. So I would, and they like to rotate those guys also. So I would think he'll get some snaps, and I wonder if they'll use him on kick returns or if his fumble last week will have moved him down in the rotation. They did bench him from kick returning after that fumble.
Yes, so moving on sort of from the game today, because a lot of fans are already looking ahead, as are we, at the head coaching search. I believe Lorenzo had asked a question about Pat Fitzgerald. Our Tom Silverstein wrote a column yesterday about Pat Fitzgerald and whether or not he'd be a good fit for the Packers. You had actually written a column telling the Packers maybe to be a little bit careful around college coaches.
Yeah.
What do you think about Fitzgerald as a potential fit for the Packers?
So it sounds like his record is very good. It sounds like he's got the leadership qualities you look for in a coach in NFL, college, whatever level. So he scores really high in those areas. I would just be very wary of anyone who's never worked in the NFL before to come into the league. The league is it's different than college football for any number of reasons. Among the things, you won't have the connections to hire NFL staff that he knows well. He knows a lot of college scouts because they come through Northwestern all the time, but the coaches, he's probably a lot more limited in the assistant coaches he knows. And since he doesn't know the league, he needs experienced assistants to succeed, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. And it's not, so like, let's say the Packers hired him and they decide to keep the coordinators they have, then it's people he's never worked with before. So you'd have a seamless part where they wouldn't be changing schemes, but you'd have a head coach who's never worked with these guys before and doesn't have the trust that you would have with someone you worked with. So long story short, I'd be very wary of hiring a guy who's never worked in the NFL, no matter how good a coach he is. There's only a couple who have done well, Jimmy Johnson being the prime example, guy who never worked in the NFL and built a really good team down in Dallas.
All right, so some food for thought. There's certainly a chance that they'll ask him for an interview regardless of whether
I just saw a report from Rob Domofsky that they in fact have requested permission to talk to him.
Okay.
I think that he just must have reported that this morning. So,
all right.
I'm sure they will interview him, and you went to school down there. You saw this guy work.
Yes.
I'm sure he's an excellent coach, and just because I would recommend against it doesn't mean he wouldn't turn out to be a really good coach. But I would be very wary just playing the odds. The history of those guys just isn't real good.
It would be interesting to see for sure. I saw a question earlier, I just pulled it up, about the timeline of the head coaching search. Daniel wanted to know, how long are we going to be going through this? When will we know when the Packers have made their selection?
I've done a couple coaching searches. There was Rhodes, Sherman, McCarthy. I think all 3 of those hires were done within a week or barely more than a week, definitely within 10 days of when the season ended. I don't know that that'll be the case this time. It depends on who they hire. It's tough to give you a timeline because if they want to hire someone whose team is in the playoffs, especially if they go to the Super Bowl, you can't hire them until the team is done playing. So it could be as long as like 5 weeks from now. But it could, and if the guy's season's done, it could be they might have a coach in 8 or 9 days from now. So it's hard to know the timeline, but it's going to be a really eventful, newsy week to month coming up for the Green Bay Packers.
Yes, so you won't be done seeing us anytime soon. There's going to be a lot of news to cover, a lot of interviews going on over the next couple of weeks, so please don't forget about us. This might be our last Facebook pregame show, but we'll done.
We'll be back.
Tony wants to know about Mike Pettin. What's his situation? What's his likelihood of sticking around next season when the new head coach is hired?
It depends completely on who the new coach is. If it's a defensive coach, a coach with defensive background, you would think that his chances would be minimal because the guy's going to want to bring his own scheme and own guys who know the scheme. If it's an offensive coach, I would think the chances would be pretty good. If I'm the Packers, I'm highly recommending to whoever the new coach is to keep him because I think it's, objectively speaking, the guy's done a good job this year with not a lot to work with, and that second season is usually better than the first for any coordinator coming in.
Today will be an interesting game for him with Jair Alexander out. Yeah. He's had Kevin King out for the better chunk of this season as well. He's been handed a situation, not ideal, but it's the way the NFL is.
That is the NFL, and a lot of teams go through it. It's the Packers were actually pretty healthy for much of this season until, the last 3 or 4 weeks. All of a sudden, the injuries really started rolling in. Perhaps Pettin will interview for the job. Is that what that was?
Yeah, someone had asked about that.
He has said he doesn't have the interest, but he's been a little vague about it, so I'm sure if they wanted to talk to him, I don't know why he wouldn't.
Sure. Terry had asked about Aaron Rodgers. Will he play the full game today? This is a question we've had for the past couple of weeks since they've been out of playoff contention, and every single time he has completed the game.
Yeah.
Is today the day we see DeShone Kizer?
I don't know. What do you think?
I'm doubtful. I think as long as he's healthy and as long as he feels okay, Aaron Rodgers will stay out there.
It sure looks that way, doesn't it?
That's the way that they've explained it to us. That's what Joe Philbin has said every single week, every time a reporter asks him whether or not we will be seeing DeShone Kizer, Tim Boyle. We're definitely not seeing Tim Boyle. He is inactive.
He's inactive, yeah.
So for any of you that wanted Boyle, sorry.
Favre, they were 4-12, and Favre finished out the season and played all the full games for the rest of the year. I remember I looked on this. Drew Brees did it when the Saints had those 7-9 seasons, 3 in a row, and 2 of them they were out of it with 3 weeks to go, and he played. So, I think Rodgers is going to be out there, and St. Brown was one of the reasons to have him out there, but they still have Valdez-Scantling as a young receiver, Tanyan if he plays a lot, Kumaro. So the snaps with those guys are all valuable also. And with the way the Packers have played this year, they all need to practice basically.
For sure. So going back to QB talk,
Mike, draft a QB in the first round.
Mike had asked, and I had seen a question earlier as well, asking about will the Packers be looking for their next franchise quarterback in this year's draft?
I still think it's, he's 35. I still think it's too early. I don't blame you for asking the question because with the way things have gone this year, they do need to think ahead. But I still think it's too early, and they put all this money into Rodgers, and he's, they basically have gone all in with him for the next 2 or 3 years. So I think they've got to use that first-round pick or those 2 first-round picks for guys who can help this team win in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years.
We've discussed this a little bit in our past Facebook Lives. Craig wants to know what positions the Packers will need to focus on in this year's draft. He seems to think the O-line needs an overhaul. I'm sure some people would agree with you out there, Craig. What do you think about what the Packers should be looking for in the draft, especially early on?
Outside, any kind of pass rusher, but especially outside pass rusher would be number 1 priority. Right tackle is going to be a big one. They can use help at guard. I'd actually maybe put tight end ahead of guard. I think they probably need to draft a tight end and get a young. They've tried these older guys, get a young guy who can really run and they can develop over the next couple of years. So I would go. The priorities for me would probably be outside rusher, and then either tight end or right tackle next, and then the other after that.
Daniel agrees that that the Packers need a right tackle.
Yeah.
Anthony says corners and safeties, which is certainly
you can never have enough of them.
Especially with the
safety's a huge need too. Now you can go bargain shopping for guards and safeties and find guys who can at least help you. You can't draft everything. They got 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, so you can't get everything with those picks. You got to prioritize, and if there's a guy they really like in the top 5, maybe they'll want to trade up for him, which would cost that second first-round pick at least, and maybe some more. You can only do so much, but those are all. They basically have a roster full of needs.
Matt asks a very interesting question because I don't think we've really addressed it. Will the Packers win today? How are the Packers going to do today?
There's a game today.
Yeah, right. It seems like there's so much else to talk about at this point of the season, but will the Packers have a shot today? The Lions are down one of their top receivers.
Yeah, Galladay is not playing, which he's an excellent receiver. He's really hurt the Packers the last couple of years. They are struggling worse than the Lions are struggling worse than the Packers. So, but without Adams, that's a big weapon out of the offense. You never know how these games are going to go. The way the quarterback played last week, though, I guess if I absolutely had to make a prediction, which I guess we all did this weekend, I'd still probably go with the Packers.
All right. We're going to take a few more questions from you guys. Bud wants to know if Le'Veon Bell of the Steelers will be an option for the Packers. I feel like we've jokingly maybe tweeted about this. I don't know if it was you or if it was Ryan or someone.
and there was a question about Clowney too. Yeah, I actually wrote a column saying I think it's something in August I would have thought this is ridiculous that going after Bell would be a waste of money, but not good bang for the buck. But Jones has the injury issues, 3 MCLs in 13 months I think it is. Can't count on him to stay healthy. To get to the Clowney question, there's no way he's going to hit the market. They're either going to sign him to an extension or franchise him. So the chances of finding an impact rusher in free agency are pretty slim. We won't know till March rolls around to see who's actually on the market after they go through the off-season stuff, because a lot of guys do extensions. But if they want an impact guy, Bell might be their best shot at it. Now, I'm not saying it's a no-brainer to go after him, and if the price gets too high, you got to walk away. But maybe his market won't be that great, and maybe you could get him for $13 million a year. If I were the Packers, I'd think about it. What separates him is the way he can operate in the passing game. He's like Gurley that way. So that versatility adds a lot to an offense.
Could be, certainly some weapons for the Packers in their offense that have been low scoring this season.
Yeah.
Our predictions, someone had asked about our predictions for this game. I don't think the Packers are going to score over 30. I forget what exactly I said.
I can't remember the score I said either. I had the Packers by 7 or 8, I think. Maybe 28-20, somewhere in there.
Okay, I think my prediction was closer than that. So, under 30, somewhat close. I had the Packers winning. Will they win without Davante Adams? I don't know.
Yeah, it gets a little tougher, that's for sure. But no, like we said, no Galladay either. So that's a big loss for Detroit. He's a very talented guy.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much. We're not going to be done Facebook Live forever. After the game, Ryan Wood and I will be back, and we'll be chatting with you guys. We appreciate all of your comments. Please bring them and bring your enthusiasm again after the game. Thank you. Thank you for joining us all season. We really appreciate it. We're going to miss you guys a lot. We'll be doing things like this throughout the offseason, especially as the coaching search continues. So, as always, please stay tuned into Packers News. Have a good game. Have a good time enjoying the game. We will see you guys after the game. Have a good one.